Welcome to THORsday Comics. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and Fantastic Four Grand Design. Today we're talking about Journey into Mystery number 98. Think you have troubles? Wait till you see what happens to Thor when he meets the Human Cobra. Even a thunder god cannot match my great power, as you are now about to learn. So we have this Jack Kirby drawn cover, most likely, conceptualized by him and Stan Lee before the story is written or drawn. And then the interiors are written by Stan Lee and drawn by Don Heck, lettered by Art Simic. So Don Heck is doing the penciling and the inking. Also, Tales of Asgard. Odin battles the ice giants. So we are going to get some Jack Kirby storytelling on the inside. A Tales of Asgard story co-written by Jack Kirby and drawn by Jack Kirby and inked by Don Heck. So Don Heck is the consistent visual identity to the next few issues, because you're going to have a story drawn and inked by Don Heck and then a story drawn by Jack Kirby and inked by Don Heck. Don inked Kirby in the previous issue, and now it's, he's going solo for this one. It isn't fair. It isn't just. I've lost the one thing I want most in the world. Lost it because I'm Thor, because I dare not disobey the command of Odin, ruler of the gods. The mighty Thor, challenged by the Human Cobra. And again, since Jack Kirby drew the cover, I'm crediting Jack Kirby as co-creator of the Human Cobra, because I fully believe that, Stan didn't go to Don Heck and say, hey, Don, come up with a villain for the next issue of Thor. And Don came up with the Human Cobra, and then Jack Kirby saw Don's version and then drew his version. It's the other way around, that Stan, as was his standard practice, went to Jack and said, come up with a character for the next issue. Jack said, how about the Human Cobra? Drew this thing up. And then, Don Heck based his design off of what Jack created and what Stan co-created. So Thor is trashing, we start off with this action scene, and sort of this kind of follows the standard idea about like your opening splash page. You have something going on that kind of is sort of visually intriguing and makes the reader ask questions. So we see, Thor just having like a huge tantrum, trashing Don Blake's office. So, we're starting to get continuing subplots from one issue to another. And so this picks up right where the previous issue left off. Jane Foster leaves Don Blake to go work for another doctor. We get the kind of little flashback here, and Don Blake's really upset about it because of his Thor identity, he can never marry Jane Foster, and that's what keeps them apart. And it's because that's Odin's rule. And so Odin summons Thor to Asgard. And he says, I can sense thy grief, my son, and so I have called thee to me to receive my advice. Put all thoughts of the human Jane Foster from out of thy mind. Forget her, else you will never know peace. No, lordly Odin, that I can never do. Even the god of thunder cannot close his heart upon command. He dares turn his back on thee, Odin? Stay thy hand, I forgive him, for I must share the sorrow of my favorite son. And now we cut to the origin story for the Human Cobra. He's the lab assistant to a famous scientist who is working on a cure for snake bites. He's jealous of the doctor, of the professor, and so he's planning to kill him, and he decides to let him die from snake bite, and then he'll get the credit for the discovery of this new cure for snake bites. Don Blake decides he needs a vacation to forget about Jane Foster for a while, gets on a plane. We're not sure exactly where he's going, but as it turns out, he came to Bombay, India, on his trip, which happens to be where this snake venom cure is being developed. And this doctor, he's Professor Schechter, my old teacher, the man they call the Albert Schweitzer of India. It can't be. So again, more references, real world names. We're not just in sort of a story filled with a lot of made up nonsense. There's, references to real people. Thor hears that he's dying of a snake bite, Don Blake's old mentor is dying of a snake bite. He flies to go help him. He tells him the story of how his assistant betrayed him, and that his assistant decided he was gonna, have the cobra bite Dr. Schechter, but then he was also gonna let the cobra bite himself, not give Dr. Schechter the antidote, and then it would look like it was just an accident. They were both bitten, and he just happened to get to the antidote in time. Dr. Schechter lets him know that it was actually this cobra was radioactive, and so that's where the assistant gets these cobra-like powers and creates a costume for himself. And so it's kind of like this is after Spider-Man, so it's kind of like the Spider-Man origin. He's bit by a radioactive cobra, and he becomes the Cobra, the Human Cobra. Spider-Man, Human Cobra. And so Thor has to go find this Human Cobra and do battle with him. We get a demonstration of some of the powers. It's kind of like Spider-Man. He can climb up things, but he kind of like slithers up things. And it's not clear if this is like this trail is denoting the path of his movement or if that's like some kind of like slime trail that he leaves. Thor tracks him down. He fires cobra darts at him, kind of like Spider-Man's web shooters. And then he has these capsules that he throws that create deadly cobra gas made of venom. Thor swings his hammer around to blow the venom away. The Human Cobra, wraps him up with his Cobra cord. So again, creating a supervillain, following a logic that's been established, with Spider-Man and with some other characters. But still, the character has enough of like a visual identity of his own. He ties Thor up with the Cobra cord, and like Captain Marvel, Shazam, Billy Bats and all that stuff. Thor gets out of these situations by, changing back to his civilian self, where this cord might have been wrapped really tightly around Thor, but the much smaller Don Blake, the cord is very loose around him, so he gets out easily, turns back into Thor, gets zapped, throws his hammer. His hammer hits a support, the building's destroyed, and in all the wreckage, he can't find the Human Cobra. It appears the Cobra escaped. And then the Cobra tracks down Jane Foster and Dr. Andrews, who she now works for and who she has something of a romantic interest in. And the Human Cobra threatens them. The doctor won't stand up to the Human Cobra. He's going along with what he's saying. Jane Foster says, "Doctor, you mustn't, no matter how he threatens us. You must not aid him. Quiet, you young fool. If you don't wish to continue living, I do." "Of course I will do what you say, Cobra. I am not looking for any trouble. What do you require?" "I can't believe it. You're nothing but a coward." So Jane sees Thor flying by. She throws a flask out the window to get his attention. And then the Human Cobra's about to shoot her. And then Thor jumps in, blocks it with his hammer at the last minute. He's holding her hostage. And then Thor chases him out the window. This is kind of cool. I like this composition. I've never seen something quite like it. I like when the scale goes really, really small like this. And so we see the whole building, and Thor does a 360 around the building, and then surprises the Human Cobra, kicks him, grabs Jane as she's falling. She tells Dr. Andrews off. "Goodbye, Dr. Andrews. I am going to return to a real man and ask his forgiveness. Beg him to let me work for him again, if he'll have me. Jane, wait, you can't. Jane." She saw the man that Dr. Andrews is, and that he's, a coward, and he's unwilling to stand up for what's right, and even a little bit nasty towards her when the chips are down. So she's going back to Don Blake. The, soap opera that was set in motion last issue is now resolved. So, we're getting there in steps. We're not quite up to like the epic multi-issue soap operas that we'll see in later issues, but we do get a continued narrative, which was a very infrequent occurrence in superhero comics at this time. And the Cobra lives, and he'll be back to menace them further. And I've got to say, this isn't too bad of an issue. This is probably the best non-Kirby issue in a while. It's not great. It's not anything I'll ever really read again, I don't think. but it's, it was enjoyable, and it, at least, unlike the other ones, it reads like a Marvel comic. The ones that are drawn and co-plotted by Joe Sinnott, they don't feel like Marvel comics. They feel more like DC Comics or Charlton or something. And so this actually feels like a Marvel comic. So that's progress. Not as good as a Kirby issue, obviously, but it's getting the job done. So it's it's not a complete waste of your time like some of those other ones. But now we're getting to the the really exciting part of this episode. The part I've been looking forward to is where we're going to talk about Tales of Asgard, which is drawn by Jack Kirby, co-written by Jack Kirby, co-written by Stan Lee, inked by Don Heck, lettered by Art Simic. And for this, we're going to switch over to my copy of the Tales of Asgard special. So this is the second installment of Tales of Asgard, and Odin battles Ymir, king of the ice giants, based upon the immortal legends of the Norse gods. In the days of the gods, when the world was young, Asgard was menaced by the rampaging ice giants, determined to bring frost, desolation, and eternal night to the land of the gods. This is the tale of their attack, one of the greatest battles of all time. We got some great Kirby-esque armor. We're getting like the beginning of like just that full-on Jack Kirby design sense applied to Viking armor. I have to say, this is my kind of comic. It's still got a lot of these compositions with the 4 panels, and it does harken back to Hal Foster's Prince Valiant. But unlike the previous issue, this one actually has word balloons. And yet it's epic. In his imperial castle on the highest peak of the tallest mount in all of Asgard, noble Odin, lord of the gods, hears the call to battle. That trumpet blares, the time has come, I must destroy the ice giants. So this isn't just like a splash page summing things up. This is moment 1 of the story, that a bunch of his gods are face to face with Ymir the ice giant, and this guy sounds the trumpet. Odin hears it and jumps into battle. Faster, my mighty mounts, my blade hungers for combat, my soul thirsts for revenge. So yeah, he's getting on his horses, ready to fight. I mean, this is my kind of comics. This is the kind of stuff I'm really into. The huge epic action, mythic themes and settings. I love it. It's the kind of stuff that got me into making comics. And it begins here in Tales of Asgard, but as time goes on, it starts to feed back into the main stories until, the whole Thor comic just fuses together as this sort of superhero mythology. And that's sort of where I came in. I became a fan of the Thor comic with this right here, this oversized Marvel Treasury edition of Thor with the Mangog story, the story of one of the times that Ragnarok almost happens, and it's like Tales of Asgard, except it's taking place in the modern day. It's pretty awesome, and it got me hooked on Thor and on Jack Kirby and on Marvel Comics, and it's the reason why I'm doing this video series right now. Behold, Odin joins the battle. When he is slain, all of Asgard shall be ours. Death to the enemies of Asgard. Heavy narration, no word balloons, all action. Giant ice clubs are being swung and flown at Odin. He's just weaving in and out on his chariot. In unison, the ice giants unleash a titanic gust of frozen north wind, hurling their noble foe from his crazily spinning chariot. And then Odin goes to the top of a mountain, swings back his sword, and bam, cuts the mountain in half, cuts the entire valley in half. All the ice giants fall into the crack, except for Ymir himself. But one frozen behemoth still remains. This, the mightiest, the most savage of all, is Ymir, king of the ice giants. Victory is not yet yours, accursed Odin. My icy spear shall yet bring you to your knees. Ha! I have dislodged the peak on which you hide like a fearful flea, and now I shall end your reign forever. Not so, evil Emer, not while breath remains in me. I shall fight you, and by my beard the victory shall yet be mine. So yeah, just epic, massive scale, this, tiny but powerful god versus this ice giant. He throws this giant like ice javelin, this, stalactite, right through the mountain that Odin's standing on. Just epic stuff. This is truly an epic. The Norse myths were never told with such gusto. A lot of attempts had been made prior to this. Your words are brave, but your deeds make a mockery of them. Even now, as you retreat in cowardly panic, I shall seize you and destroy you. And then Odin, I have trapped you, Emer. Before you can make another move, I strike this very spot, releasing the one force which can defeat you, the fiery, smoldering flames from the depths below. And so Emer, the last of the dreaded ice giants, becomes an eternal prisoner on that barren spot, surrounded by a wall he can never penetrate, whilst noble Odin, ruler of the gods, returns to his throne in Asgard. I love this sort of, lordly Odin seated upon his throne. Kind of reminds me of like a Conan story or something where he has all his crazy adventures, and then, this little flash forward to him, lord of all he surveys. Just great stuff. So much fun. And something that comics weren't really doing until Jack Kirby, and now it's become part of the language of comics. Become part of the language of comics that I do, and what I started with. Myth of Eight Opus was my attempt to do a sort of big mythic Jack Kirby-esque superhero comic. Superhero crossed with sci-fi, crossed with mythology. And this is the kind of stuff that really inspired me, and I love it, and looking forward to reading more of this stuff with each episode. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and Fantastic Four Grand Design. I'll see you next THORsday.